Before we get to our next speaker, I want to ask you all to do one thing, one favor for me. Everybody pull out a piece of paper and a pen. It's really critically important. Everybody's got to do it. I'll give you a moment to do that. And I want you to write down on that piece of paper that one thing, that one limiting factor that is holding you back from success. I know we all have one. I know we all have egos too. Okay? Sometimes we have a little bit of an ego that holds us back from believing that we have anything that holds us back from success. But tonight, please write down that one thing that holds you back from success. And with that in mind, folks, let me turn your attention to the screens on both sides of me for the introduction of our next speaker.
My name is Kyle Maynard. In the next 6 months of my life, going out there and trying to achieve some things that a lot of people would have thought that I'd never be able to do. I know in my heart that I can.
It became really normal, you know, remarkably.
He never stops trying.
And then he won the starting spot his senior year. And he was for real.
I was training for my first fight in mixed martial arts. Mixed martial arts is basically no holds barred competition. I was denied by the Georgia State Athletic and Entertainment Commission to go in and compete. You know, this is one of my biggest dreams.
When other people are telling you that you are not good enough, that you cannot go and do something, that your dreams are too big, that is a lie. You have to go and decide that and confirm that in yourself, though, to believe that now. I mean, life is too short to go and let it slide by, to go and say that I'm just going to go and allow other people to go and dictate what I'm capable of doing. No, it was that first moment where I realized what I was doing mattered. It was worth something.
It's hard to step back up, to dust the dirt off and keep on going. But that's where you learn, you know, who you are inside.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm, agile welcome to Mr. Kyle Maynard.
Concentrated power of will, 5% pleasure, 50% pain, 100% reason to...
It's hard to take the stage when you feel like a fraud. My message is supposed to be a simple one. Make no excuses. I'm going to tell you that there have been times in my life where I haven't always lived by that. When I started speaking, it was 2005. I remember one night in particular, after I just put down a room service meal. I'd been traveling through about 60 cities in 90 days, 3 months into a book tour. Put down the room service meal, topped it off with a milkshake. I'd put on about 30 pounds in 3 months. I finished a on-demand movie on the hotel movie channel. It was like I had watched 4 times in a row, and I tried to call my friends up to get somebody to go and talk to because I was sitting in this room and I was all alone. No one was there to talk to me. Everyone was out having fun. I looked in the mirror and I saw the guy staring back at me barely resembled that athlete that I was supposed to be speaking about. And I felt like for the first time in my life, I had been a complete fraud. That every word that I would say and speak to this group in the morning coming out of my mouth was not something I was living myself. You know, have you ever felt like a fraud? You may have been in the health world representing, Agile to go and say, like, I don't know if I can get my own health together. Maybe you're trying to go and deliver a message of hope and prosperity and wealth to someone else and give them a chance. And it's like, I can't get this together in my own life. We go through these things and we allow this mentality to be able to become our reality. To me, it didn't start out that way. I got to go and release my book and did Oprah, Larry King, HBO Real Sports, all these programs, and my life was on fire. Book became a New York Times bestseller, was speaking around the world, and it was an amazing time. But the thing that I allowed to happen to me was to buy in to other people's belief on what I was capable of doing. Not my belief, other people. You have to decide. When I would travel in the airports, sometimes I'd pull up to the gate in the plane, and I'd see other people, when they'd look at me, the gate agents, to go and board the flight, they would think, like, it's going to take a while to get this guy on the plane. I'd go and tell them, like, no, it's no problem. I'll get to my own seat. And sometimes people try to, like, force help on me. And I get in that stubborn mentality, like, if somebody's going to help me, that, I'll just go and do it myself. There's one time in particular where I had a guy come up to me. I was in the middle of this book tour, traveling from New York and LaGuardia Airport, flying to Toronto for another speech. This guy came up to go and help me down the jetway to take my wheelchair and push it down the jetway to get to the plane. And he said that he had to help me. So I was like, all right, no, I'm going to go and do it on my own. But the guy kept persisting, so I figured, all right, I'm going to let him help me. You guys can't see my wheelchair. It's backstage, but it's about 3 feet off the ground. Problem was with this whole situation was the guy that wanted to help me was about like 7 feet tall. Had to go and bend all the way over to go and grab the handlebars of the chair to go and push me down this jetway. So he goes and he takes about like 3 steps, and he trips over a bar in the back of the chair. And I've got a 60-pound bag of clothes around my neck. And doesn't just let go of the wheelchair, trips and sends me flying down this thing. Started steaming down. There's a couple down at the bottom looking up to me like, this is it, Kyle's coming. And I tried to stop myself, tried to go and grab the chair and ram it into the wall. Didn't stop then, tried to go and grab hold of the side of the wall to still flying down to go and stop myself. And there's folding patterns down metal, like strips that I tried to go grab hold of, ripped my arm open, so there's a streak of blood coming down now. I hit the bottom of the ramp, I flipped out, chair flipped over, everybody came running out thinking I was going to sue the airline. I popped up, guy came running down thinking he's going to lose his job. I told them, look, I'm not going to sue anybody, just promise me one thing. You will never help me again. And it's what, right. To me, I have to go and remember that when other people see me for that first time, they might have 10,000 things going through their head as to what life would be like in my situation. And it's their perceptions of things, the way that they see me and see life in my shoes. You might be wondering things like, anything from how would I eat, drive, type on a computer. I mean, for me, things are pretty normal. There's not many adaptations that I have in my life. I type about 50 words a minute on a normal keyboard without any adaptation, even though I don't like people knowing I can answer email right away. I drive a normal vehicle. I've got lifted up pedals, and the pedals are just extensions on there. It's a Durango that put the seat a little bit closer to the wheel and freak people out when I come through the drive-thru sometimes. And things are pretty normal. My townhouse is 3 stories, my bedroom's on the top floor. When other people look at me, though, they might think and wonder what life would be like in my shoes. And that's something that, if they don't know me, they don't know my story, it's not my job to forcefully show them. It's my job just to change their perceptions through what I can do. Other people, when they look at you, they might doubt. They might lack belief. They might go and take their lack of belief and they might put it on you to say that if I were in your shoes, I couldn't do it. People hold perceptions of things about what certain things mean. When they see me, they might see a guy without arms and legs, and they might think that that's the worst thing that ever happened to me. To me, that's the greatest gift I've ever been given. And it truly is a choice. The things that happen to us in our lives, sometimes they're out of our control. For me, my attitude going in and speaking at that time when I was ready to go and give up and quit, that was something that was absolutely within my control. I was making excuses. I was making all these reasons up in my head as to why I couldn't do it. And I can tell you, it's not rocket science, but the depressed motivational speaker doesn't work very well. Not a dynamic I recommend. But it was something that I could not control the way that I was born. I was born without my arms and legs. And my parents, when I was growing up, they treated me as completely normal. They did not focus on the things that were wrong. They focused on all the things that were good and right in my life. All the things that I could do. Wouldn't allow me to go and give in and quit on little things. I see this now so much in parents that tell their kids that they're spoiled. Or they tell their kid, this one's a party animal, or this one's bad at math. And we confirm that in our youth, in each other, by focusing on these things. That power of our focus is so critical and so important to be able to go and change and start focusing on things that we can control, that we can change. You have been hit with challenges this year. Major challenges. You've been hit with change in leadership. After a conversation that I had this morning with Jeff Higginson, I know some of the adversity that you've faced and what he's going to go and share later on. I'll tell you that it's many of you, the expectation and the goals that he's going to share with you, you're going to sit there and think, this is completely impossible. And you know what? You might think, this is totally crazy. Having that worthwhile goal, what he's going to go and issue and challenge to you, you have to decide how you're going to go and take it and respond and react to it. To go and believe that what you want out of that is possible. What you want out of your business, your life, and so many things, it's your choice. Again, there's things that you can't control and there's things that you can. When I was growing up, all I wanted to do was have other kids look at me as totally normal. My grandmother used to go and teach me so many powerful lessons in just accepting myself by taking me into grocery stores. When I was 4 years old, she would set me in the front seat of the cart and she would go up and down the aisles of the grocery stores. And she taught me that if anyone was looking at me or staring, that they felt uncomfortable, just to reach out and shake their hand and tell them, "Hi, I'm Kyle." She said that once people hear your voice and they see your face, then nothing else will matter. The disability will go and fade away. Now that's my first instinct. For those of you that I met, to go and reach out and shake somebody's hand right away for the first time when I meet somebody. 99% of the time, especially people that, agile people that like engage, come back and shake right away. It's funny, 1% of the time though, when I go to shake somebody's hand, I'll go and see their eyes get big, like that look of terror, like, whoa, this guy doesn't have a hand, what do I shake? To me, it's my way of showing that, yeah, the seemingly obvious disability might be something that you see, and it's not going to affect my life, it's not going to affect my relationship with you. It's when the kids would come up and ask questions. It's one of the hardest things that I had to endure. Kids would go and ask, what happened to your arms and legs? I would tell them that this is the way that I was born. And kids would keep asking, what happened to your arms and legs? And I'd tell them, this is the way that God made me. And kids want to know the real dirt, so they keep asking questions, keep going for it. And finally, like 9 or 10 times, kids ask, like, what happened to your arms and legs? And I'll go and tell them, well, like, I got dangled over the tiger cage at the zoo, dropped in. You see the eyes get big, like, oh, okay, I understand now. I had when I was 10 years old, a guy came up to me and asked, he was in his, like, probably 30s, and he said, what happened to your arms and legs? I told him, Vietnam. And he believed me. Talk about interesting belief. But because I see the world this way, does not mean that other people are going to see the world the same way when I meet them. So allowing myself to fall into that mode of being a victim, being helpless, just because someone else would go and look at me that way, that is not the response that I should choose to have. I am the only one that can decide what I'm capable of. In your life, you are the only one that can choose to believe. Your perception, I believe, is how you see things, how you internalize things. To go and say, like, things just are what they are. A change in leadership, you could go and say, this is the worst thing that ever happened, or you could go and say, this is the greatest thing that has ever happened in this company. So I have confident people behind me that love me and give me an opportunity to grow. The economy, you could go and say, this is the worst thing that could ever happen to me, that Dow is falling, the stock market's crumbling, the global economy is falling apart. Or you could say, you know what? There are people out there who need my hope. People seeking jobs that could go and have an opportunity from what you could go and give them through your dreams, to be able to go and give them and help them understand and shape that perception. Belief, that is your tool. I believed when I was growing up, I could do anything. My parents let me even be delusional and think that. In a lot of ways, I remember when I was 11 years old, I brought a flyer home from school, and I told my mom that I wanted to play football. And she didn't know how to respond to it right away, but she said, you know what, I'm going to call the coach up, and we'll see what he says. She did. She called the coach up, and she said, my son has a disability, and he wants to play football. She didn't tell him what it was, thankfully. And she said, he said, sure, just bring him out. We'll see what he can do. I came out. I ran the same 40-yard dash as the other kids and ended up making the football team. I wear my number around the house for a week, thinking that I was special, that I'd made this 11-year-old youth football team, and didn't realize, since it was a youth league football team, nobody got cut. I thought I was special. When I went out, my coach told me to go and line up as a nose tackle. So American football, defensive line. I'm down on all fours, and the running backs, ball carriers, when they would come crashing through the line, my job was, down on all fours, I would take my helmet, smash it into their legs, and try to bring them down. I believed that no matter who it was, I could take him down. The first time that I ever got to take a snap in football was a pretty funny experience. The center, when he went to go and snap the ball, so the guy hiking the ball, I'm down in all fours right across from him. I didn't know what I was doing, so I figured I'd follow it. He snapped the ball between his legs, and I dove underneath his legs and messed him up so bad, the quarterback fell over, and I got the sack, very first play. I came home that night, and I told my dad, I'm going right to the NFL now. That belief was my tool in this, to be able to say that I wasn't going to be a token member of the team. I wanted to step up and be I wanted to be a viable member of this team. I wanted to succeed. I wanted to contribute something. In the first real game that I ever played, the opposing coach brought my coach over, and he told him, I think it's a real special humanitarian thing that you're letting this disabled kid play football. He said, don't worry. We aren't going to be cheap. We aren't going to be unfair. We aren't going to run the ball anywhere near him. My coach brought me over, and he told me, he said for that coach to tell me that same story. And after he did, he got through telling him, I knew that they were going to test me. My coach issued a challenge where he said, I dare you to test Kyle. We came out to the huddle before that first snap. All my 10 teammates were talking about how scared they were to tackle the running back from the other team. And there was a lot of reason. We were 11 years old at the time, and this was the only kid that I've seen, 11-year-old, that had like biceps and a mustache. This kid was huge, the running back. And my 10 teammates were talking about how scared they were. And I knew that they were going to come after me and test me. And on the very first play of that game, they handed the ball off to that running back, and he came crashing through the line. I took my helmet, and I smashed it into his legs. I grabbed hold of his legs and held on, and I brought him down. It was like that in almost every single game that I played. The opposing coach would look at me as that weak link, and I had to go and decide whether or not I was going to buy into that and be that weak link, or if I was going to step up and know what I was capable of doing. When you go up and you talk to somebody, you're trying to help someone, you're trying to get someone involved in your program, in your network, and they might say, I know what this person's trying to do to me. I've heard about these companies or a scheme, MLM, all the colored perceptions of what things are, right? Just like not having arms and legs. When I go and walk up to somebody and someone looks at me and thinks that I'm helpless. Because it's perfectly logical to think that a guy without arms and legs should never be able to get out of his wheelchair. Just like all bad experiences that someone has had before they come up and they talk to you. They're colored with these perceptions. You don't have to buy into that. You don't have to be that. I never had to be helpless because other people saw me that way. All I had to do is believe what I was capable of doing. In a few months, outside of my wheelchair, crawling on all fours, I'm going to climb to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. There are no wheelchair ramps or elevators on Kilimanjaro. I have to make my own accessibility to get to Kilimanjaro. No one else who you talk to, who you are trying to help, who you are trying to give an opportunity, very few will believe in what you are capable of. And if in the back of your mind, as I have been there in these times, you start to deal with the doubt, to go and say, like, I wonder if I believe, or I can even do it myself, right? We have all this noise going on in our heads. We're going out there to go and talk to somebody else, but we're totally stuck here. That excuse, that limitation that you wrote down on that piece of paper, how much is that causing that noise up here? How many other areas of your life is this excuse affecting? There's probably, for all of us, like Sam said, but one limiting thing that if we just got rid of it and did not allow that to affect us, our whole lives would change. Our whole business, our world, everything would change because of letting go of that one thing. If you take anything away from my message, when you walk out that door, I want you to take that piece of paper. I want you to crumble it up. I want you to throw it on the floor. And I want you to say that this is no longer going to affect my life. That I believe what I'm capable of doing and what I deserve to have. Because we do deserve this. And things, when we start, are not always going to be easy. Agile is going through right now a rebirth. You are the core. And when you start moving in a new direction, to start to grow, to live your life, things are going to be tough. For some reason, this is like the way that the universe is like hardwired, that whenever we start something new, it's when it's going to be the toughest. When I got involved in wrestling, 3 weeks after the football season ended, my dad tricked me into coming out and trying a wrestling practice and basically told me it was going to be just like all the professional wrestlers, Hulk Hogan and all those guys jumping off the top ropes. I had no idea what I was walking into. I came out there and looking around like, where's the ring? In wrestling, I was out there all alone. Every excuse that I made on the center of that wrestling mat, I had to take full responsibility for. Every time I lost, I couldn't blame it on anybody else. I had to decide. And I lost a lot. I lost 35 times in a row. For a year and a half, I did not win a single match. I would go home and I would cry myself to sleep because I wondered, and what was my place in the world? If I am losing these wrestling matches over and over and over again, why would a merciful God put me in a sport where I had no idea if I could win a single match? What was fair about that? Because other people were telling me all these things they were saying like, I didn't have the reach, I didn't have the leverage, I didn't have the grip, I didn't have all these tools that I needed to win. It was completely impossible, they said, for a guy without arms and legs to win a wrestling match. That it would never happen. And I started to buy into that, started to believe it. When I would hear that, I started to make that my reality. And so it happened, match after match. I was in total self-sabotage mode. If I was wrestling against a great wrestler, I would wrestle great, and I would fall just short. If I was wrestling against a terrible wrestler, I would wrestle terrible, but I'd fall just short. I kept losing over and over again, and I was questioning, like, would I ever be able to have a normal job, a career? Would I be able to have a normal girlfriend, wife, kids? Like, what was my place in the world? My dad, I was ready to quit and give up. They wouldn't let me quit. They used to drag me to these practices crying. My 6th grade ended, and going into the 7th grade season, I knew if I signed up again and my parents shelled out the money for me to get involved, then I had to stick out the whole season, so I did not want to do it. My dad told me, he said, I didn't win a match my whole first year, and I went on to become a successful college wrestler. I think you can do the same thing. So I said, all right, I'll sign up. Same thing kept happening halfway through that season, losing match after match. I didn't find out until several years later that what he had told me had been a blatant lie. But it worked. And it got me to come back out. Halfway through that season, I had so much fear inside of me that it was crippling me. Fear can be a great tool. But fear, just like anything else, it is what it is. It is completely how we look at it. To me, this fear, that fear that you get inside of your stomach when you've been knocked down 35 times in a row, when you've talked to someone 35 times in a row, 35 people have told you absolutely not. How do you believe that next time, to truly believe that next time you'll succeed? To me, I thought I was the only one in the world who had this crippling fear inside my gut. And one thing that took it away was a realization where the first kid that I beat, I looked into his eyes right before that match. First match that I won. I saw for just a split second, I saw in his eyes that he was just as scared as I was. And all of a sudden, it took all that fear off of me. I came out and shook hands with this kid. Referee blew the whistle. I went in right after him and took him down, landed on top of him. Like, everybody went nuts, screaming moves at me and all these things. And I was landed on top of this kid thinking, like, I got him down. This is awesome. My dad screaming moves to me, my coach. And I was thinking, this is awesome, but I have no idea what to do to this kid now. He told me to let him up. I thought if I let him up, then I won't be able to get him back down again. But I'll just follow what my dad told me to, so I let him up, and I went in after him again. Took him down, let him up. Took him down, let him up. Grabbed hold of his arm, took him down, let him up. And that momentum started to happen. And I beat this kid in the third period where they stopped the match by a 15-point mercy rule. I had taken him down over 15 times. That was... It's the last losing season I ever had. My senior year in high school, I placed top 12 in the nation against able-bodied athletes. Won and defeated several state champions and state placers along the way in that, to be one of the top wrestlers in the country. When people told me I would never be able to win a match, when people tell you and tell you what you're capable of, that's not you. Belief, that is your tool to say, hey, this is belief. My belief in what I am capable of in my life is entirely within my control. That other people and what they think is totally irrelevant. That for me, inside my heart, this is what I'm capable of doing. This is what I deserve. As I've dealt with that all the time. I mean, the look of doubt. When people look at you and you see that look in their eye that's like, they're thinking about, if I were in your shoes and I were running your business, I could not do it. That is a lie. You decide. You decide what you're capable of and believe and deserve. I started lifting weights with 2.5 pounds on each arm. I was embarrassed. You know the tiny 2.5 pound plates in this gym? I was lifting with those and gradually kept getting stronger. By the time I was a senior in high school, set the first world record for the world's strongest teen. 2 years ago, I had a bench press of 420 pounds. No applause until I get 500. There were people who looked at me in the gym that had that look in their eye, like, what's this disabled kid trying to prove? And there were other people that looked at me and confirmed and knew what I was capable of. I think that is what's the most powerful thing, the most powerful experience you can have at this conference. Look in someone else's eyes. Look in someone else's eyes, a hero that you want to go and emulate on this stage. To go and know, when you look in their eyes and you go and see that they look back at you and they believe what you are capable of doing. It changes everything. Randy Gage is one of my heroes. He is He's a hero for a lot of us. To me, I see him as the best speaker in the world. And but I will tell you, Randy, he has helped me so much in my path to be a speaker, and that it's helped me so much that I know for a fact someday I want that title as best speaker in the world, and I'm gunning for him. But when we look at that and we see what is possible, it changes us. And it is so hard to sit there. If you were like me when I was losing 35 matches in a row, I was lifting 2.5 pounds, 5 pounds total in a bench press. I mean, if you're starting your business now, or maybe you're in the early stages of it, you look up on the stage and you see the people who are performing and that are on the top of the world, and you think, how could I ever get there? If I had a time machine to go back in time and tell that 11-year-old version of myself that I was capable of being a top 12 wrestler in the nation and bench pressing 420 pounds, there's no way logically that I would have believed myself. But it would have been true. I want you to think about this now. Once you take that excuse, that limitation that you wrote down, and it is an excuse, make no mistake. Once you take that and you crumble it up and you throw that away, what's your life look like from now? 5 years, 10 years? How many lives are you going to have changed? How many families are you going to have delivered hope to? What is that going to look like and feel like for you? To know and believe that you deserve that. It helps us to overcome that doubt. When other people doubt, and I've experienced doubt on a heavy level, to the point where people hated me for pursuing my dreams. This is another thing that I talked to Jeff about this morning. Jeff has had people that you'll hear who have issued doubt and even hate for his dream, his vision. To me, people said, I had a dream to go, and you guys saw in the video, I wanted to become the first quad amputee fighter to go and step into a mixed martial arts cage. And to me, it wasn't about anything other than having the experience. I wanted to go and to live in my dream there. So people online, anonymous internet forums, on YouTube and other places like that, and Twitter, people attacking me on several different platforms all over the place, where people said, for me to go and step into a cage, mixed martial arts is the ultimate fighting, the cage fighting, it is a very, sometimes controversial, dangerous sport. People said that I was going to be the first televised death in the sport. That they were going to go and turn on Good Morning America. They were going to see me lying bloody and unconscious in the cage. And that was going to be the death of the sport because the sport's going to be cast in such a barbaric light. People that were emailing me, telling me that if they fought me, they wouldn't have a problem kicking my skull in. They'd pick me up and pump me out of a cage, they said. People, one guy even said something as hurtful as, come take a chainsaw and cut off my arms and legs so I can get on Oprah like Kyle. It was a really big emotional setback for me. It was a really tough period. And I let it affect me a lot initially. And I started to go and realize. I made the biggest realization actually when I got to go and continue fighting through that, fought through for my dream to the point where 2 years later, after I was initially denied in 2007 by the Georgia State Athletic Commission to fight, I was denied. I went across the state line. For those of you who know, in the U.S., Georgia to Alabama, went across the state line. There's a lot less government regulation in Alabama. And I got a chance to go and fight. I went out and stepped into the cage. They shut that cage door behind me and they put the pin in the door. I knew I was locked in now whether I wanted to be or not. And I looked around and I saw my friends and I saw my family and the people that supported me. And then I saw a lot of random faces. I saw people that made me think about someone sitting back online behind a keyboard in their perceived position of power. That made me think about the people that hated me for doing this. And in that moment, I looked around and I thought, I am living my dream. I'm experiencing everything that I had visualized over and over and over again, and I had made my reality. And the feeling that came over me was one of total sympathy and compassion. I thought, what's a disability? Does a disability have anything to do with not having arms and legs? Or is a disability truly one that we carry on the inside? One that keeps us I believe that, we all have a disability. Every one of us. But if our disability is keeping us from following our dreams and our passions, and we find it easier to tell someone else what they can't do, that's a big disability. And I realized I want to do something in my life that is, I don't want to, I'll phrase it like this. I don't want to find it easier to criticize someone else when I can do something worthy of criticism. Something that's worth other people telling me that my dream is completely impossible. Because it's totally impossible for a guy to go and step into a cage and fight in mixed martial arts. Just like it's totally impossible for Agile to be one of the biggest companies in the world. Or for you to have a multi-million-dollar business. Because that's, these are beliefs that we allow other people to take and manifest in our life, not our own. Because when that fight started, much to the dismay of the detractors, my opponent, because he didn't want to go to the ground, he jabbed and crossed, stayed on his feet, and he ran from me. Ran from the guy without his arms and legs because he didn't want to go to the ground and get choked. After the fight was over, I lost a decision. He landed a couple of more strikes, 30-27 on the judges' scorecards. And after it was over, to me, the outcome was irrelevant. The experience was amazing. It changed me. There's a word that I use to define this. It's a word that I hope helps you in your life. I call this my apogee. An apogee in science is if we take the orbit of a satellite, take the Earth orbiting around the sun. At some point, the Earth is going to reach the furthest point in that orbit. But when you go and spread that out, okay, as we expand that, if the Earth were to go and slide out further from that, the entire orbit stretches. That is your apogee. In your life, you are here because you chose to celebrate your capabilities, your belief. the challenge that my friend Jeff Higginson's going to issue to you tonight, you're going to sit here and you're going to think, you know what? This might seem impossible. I choose. It's what you need to tell yourself and remind yourself. I choose whether or not I am capable of rising up and making this my reality, making this my passion, and make this dream come true. Find it easier in your life to do something that is worthy of that criticism. So I want to end where we began. I was on the ropes as a speaker. I gave the speech. I was 19 years old, and I was giving a speech to mortgage bankers. I barely knew what a mortgage loan was. I had no idea. I was talking to these people about no excuses. I was trying to tell them about this no excuses message, and I felt like every word that came out of my mouth, they looked back at me and they could see straight through me. And it was the worst feeling, thinking that I was a complete fraud, that I'd allowed these excuses to just run my life. I was making excuses about the airport food, that I was making excuses that I'm too tired to go in to do a workout at the gym. And, I'm lonely on the road traveling, that I don't want to keep doing this anymore, that it's too tough. And I get on the phone like we do sometimes when we go and complain. And I started talking to my mom and my parents. They'd never let me quit anything in my life. I'm complaining and I'm venting to her about how terrible everything is. Even though this is what I set out to go and to do, but it's like, you know what, I went overnight from being a full-time college student to a full-time business traveler, and that transition, like, it was just too much, it was too quick, and I'm ready to quit. And she says, you know what, you gave this 3 months, and if you want to go back to school, like, you can quit and you can go back to school. I thought, it's the first time in my life my mom has ever given me a chance to quit. So confirmed in that, like, I felt pretty good about myself. Mom gave me the chance to quit. I thought I'd finish my book tour and I'd go home and get my old life back. Things happen to us for a reason. People are in our lives for a reason. I get to the airport. I go through security, and I'm sitting at the gate in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and I'm waiting to fly to my next destination. I'm sitting down in a chair, and I see two guys looking at me, and they're talking back and forth. They're looking at me, and they're talking, looking at me and talking. And I thought maybe these guys had seen me on TV before. You know what, like, I'm gonna go make a friend on the road. I'm gonna go and reach out and meet these guys. So I jumped in my wheelchair, and I wheeled myself over to meet them. Went to go and shake the first guy's hand, and he reached back to shake mine, and I saw that his hand had almost been completely burnt off. It's like my eyes opened up now, and I saw burns going up his arm into his friend that was sitting next to him. I saw terrible burns down the side of this guy's body. They told me their story. They had been in the Army, military police, and they were guarding a convoy, a fuel truck, gasoline, driving a fuel truck, and their truck was hit with rockets. And a fire came up over the dashboard. And it burnt the first guy's hands. He had his GED to become a mechanic. All hope for him was totally lost that moment that he thought that fire came up over his hands. His friend jumped on him to try to go and extinguish the flames, and it burnt the whole side of his body to the point where his 3 kids could barely recognize him. And these guys came back to Brooks Army Medical Center and San Antonio, Texas. And they were laying in a hospital bed, and they would not speak to the hospital staff. They would not speak to the doctors. They would not speak to the nurses. Their family, desperate to try to get in touch with them, called them. They wouldn't return a call to their family. They would only speak to each other. And they said that on the 7th day that they were lying there in that hospital bed, they made a suicide pact with each other, that they would take each other's lives. And they said that on that day, that they made that decision. They saw my story on HBO, and that was what got them to stop. They helped me find my purpose. They helped me find my belief to do what I'm doing and change people's lives. You want to know how to find your belief? You find your belief by finding your why. You find your truth, and you realize that there are no excuses. Thank you guys very much for having me.